It's not about those things. It's not about the blessings of God. It's about the things that we plant or put into our daily lives. Whatever we're putting in, we will reap a harvest of that. Okay? And last week we talked about we reap only what we sow. We talked about how you can't put ungodly things, continue to put ungodly things within your heart, within your life, and expect to reap godly things. That's not the way it works. Again, there's laws in place that, we're going to reap only what we sow. Today's idea or thought from this, part 2 of this series is we reap in a different season than we sow. Okay, and it's just kind of common sense, but at the same time, sometimes we kind of get confused, especially in the world that we live in today, and the society that we have, and the instant gratification that we kind of expect from, I see it a lot dealing with kids and working with kids. We don't really. There's so often I'll see a kid that tries something new and they'll fail at it and they'll be like, "Oh, that's it, done with that." Like if they don't just get it right away, they don't know what it means to kind of just roll up your sleeves and go to work and work for something and put in time and all those things, And but the idea is that we reap in a different season than we sow. The problem is a lot of times is that someone may do something that they know is not right. Okay? And it kind of, they'll do something that is a sin. And then they'll go along for a week or two. They're like, nothing bad happened. Nothing terrible happened. Guess I got away with that. And then it just kind of keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But what you don't realize is you're planting stuff that you're going to reap in a different season. See, God's not standing up with crosshairs on you with a spiritual rifle just waiting on you to step out of line and take you out as soon as you do. That's not how it works. Okay? If you make a mistake, or now making mistakes one thing. I don't mean to say that. I misspoke there. Because if you make a mistake and you realize I've sinned and you hit your knees and say, "God, forgive me for that," that's not planning stuff. That's just making a mistake. You see what I'm saying? But if you continually do wrong, that's planning. You see what I mean? And a lot of times people will do wrong and then they continue to do wrong because nothing's happening. I'm not getting punished or anything. Okay. So then you just keep planning and planning, but not realizing that in a different season you're going to reap what you sow. Okay? Our base scripture for this month, we're going to jump around a couple different places today, but our base scripture comes from Galatians chapter 6, and it's verses 7 through 9. I'll read those to you this morning just as I read last week, just to kind of give us a starting point. It says, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." Verse 9, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season," and this is kind of where we're talking, what the component we're talking about today. "Don't grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." May God add a blessing to the reading of His Word. And I know there are a lot of times when, in my own life, sometimes I'll forget this. And I've heard, and it's kind of, we have this mentality, sometimes we're like, "God, why aren't you blessing me? I've been praying for 2 days now." Yeah. Again, we just want that instant gratification, and it takes time, okay? Things take time, all right? Here's my football analogy, okay? The football team that I took over went 1-9 for the last 2 years before this season, okay? And they're about this big. I mean, Luke might start on the offensive line. They're just not very big, okay? We had one kid get hurt 2 weeks ago. Another kid got hurt in practice last week. We're starting a kid who's never played a varsity football game before in his life, and both of them, and then a true freshman Friday night. I mean, about this big around. Just welcome to football. Here's St. Mary's. Go get it. And it's 7-0 at halftime. It's 7-0 at halftime. We're playing right with them. Now, we can't do hardly anything on offense because those kids are there. Not to mention there's another freshman on the line who's been playing this year, first year. And then there's 2 seniors on the right. We run to the right a lot. Okay? But that's what we're left. That's what we got. And it's 7-0 at halftime. Okay? Or from a team that went 1-9 for 2 years in a row. And last year, the score of this football game was like 35-0 at the half. Okay? So these kids are giving it everything they've got. They work, man. They're playing their hearts out. But you know what most people do? Well, you've lost 4 games in a row. Starts at the top. I heard someone scream that. Well, it starts at the top. We've lost 4 in a row now. You see what I'm saying? People they want instant. They want you go from 1-9 to 10-0 because my goodness, you're playing a football game. Why aren't you winning? Same thing could be true about the Mountaineers. Graduated a ton of people, got a brand new coach, trying to start over basically. And then we lost the game, he's terrible. I don't think so. I think we need to give this guy some time. I think he knows what he's doing. Just need to give him some time, Because, like I told my team, we may not be, I used my sermon based on them, so we may not be reaping the benefits right now, we may not be getting rewarded right now, but I know what you're doing, and hard work is going to pay off. You just keep doing what we're doing. Eventually, we're going to see the wins happen. I didn't tell them it may not be this year, but it's going to happen. There's 4 seniors on that football team. That's it. The whole team's pretty much coming back. You just got to keep digging. It's going to pay off. Okay? But no, people want it right now. You see what I'm saying? Far too often as Christians, it's the same thing. We come into church, we get a problem, something goes wrong, we show up at church for 2 or 3 weeks, we say, all right, God, now bless. Well, fix this. We reap in a different season than we sow. My father-in-law is a farmer. I use this a lot. You guys know he's a farmer. He used to own a dairy farm. We've been over this. He sold the thing. Good for him. Because he worked his fingers to the bone for not a whole lot of anything. Okay? But he would plant corn. Okay? He would plant corn, and his saying was it needs to be knee-high by the 4th of July. That was his thing. So he'd plant corn in June. They didn't harvest the corn until the fall, till about this time. So it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for him if he knew the harvest was supposed to take place in, September is usually when they did it. September, all right? It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for him to wait until August to plant it. See, because you reap in a different season than you sow. And that is just a spiritual law. It's the same thing for us spiritually. You see, we see people today who we know that we look around in our community or in our town, and we see people who we know aren't living right. We know that they have cheated, stole, and lied to get where they are, and yet they're living high on the hog. And we think, what is wrong with the world we're living in? That's not fair. Well, no, it's not. But you reap in a different season than you sow. Their time's coming. Their judgment is coming. We can't let that, we have to do what we need to do. We have to continue to follow what God has called and put it upon our hearts and in our hearts, and we need to continue to sow the good seeds. Okay? There was a CEO of a large company who brought all of his young associates in on the company, and he said, one of you, he says, I'm getting old, I'm getting ready to retire, I'm going to go enjoy life. One of you will be the new CEO. And he gave them all a seed. And he says, I want you to take this seed home. I want you to plant it. I want you to water it. I want you to take care of it. In a year, you're going to bring this back. I'm going to retire. And judging upon how well you take care of this seed that I'm giving you, says that will have a large factor in me picking who's going to be the new CEO. He says, I'm not really sure what these seeds are. I just randomly grabbed it. Said it wouldn't be fair if I knew exactly what I didn't want to, said they may all be, he said, I don't know what they are, but I had someone go bring me these seeds. So he said, here you go, and sent them off. Well, there's this one guy named Jim, not our Jim, just Jim. Okay? And he had his seed, and he planted it. He told his wife the story. She got all excited, and they got a flower pot, this big flower pot, and he planted it, and he watered it, and they took care of it, and they put, Miracle Grow, whatever. They were doing everything they could. And a couple months went by, and all his other co-workers were starting to talk about how beautiful their plants were. A couple were trees, a couple were these beautiful flowers, and nothing happened. He just kept trying to take care of the seed. Nothing. It went on, and he realized that, that his seed wasn't going to work. So in a year's time, they had their meeting. Here comes all these guys carrying in all these wonderful things, flowers and plants and trees and whatnot, in these pots. And Jim told his wife, he said, I don't even think I'm going to bring mine in, because what's the point of me bringing in this sad old pot? Doesn't even have a seed, that nothing grew. So she said, says, just, for accountability's sake, you need to bring it in, just tell them what happened, So they bring in their plants, and he's kind of hiding in the back, and he kind of tries to kind of hold his pot behind his back kind of thing, And the CEO walks in, he sees it, he says, wow, these look amazing, guys. This is beautiful, So this is, you guys did such an awesome job. And he's looking around, he said, Jim, where's yours? And he brought it out, said, here, sir. He said, I'm sorry, but this thing did not grow. And he said, okay, everyone sit down. He called Jim up, and Jim's like, great, I'm going to get fired in public. And the CEO said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the CEO that's going to take over the company, Jim. And everyone's looking, it's like, what? It didn't even grow. And then he explained what happened. He said, I gave each of you a boiled seed. The boiled seed would not grow. If you planted it and watered it, no matter what you did, it wasn't going to grow. And he said, Jim's the only guy that had enough fortitude inside to be honest and not replace it with some other seed. And he had enough accountability. He didn't lie about it. He brought what I gave him. Everyone else lied about it and cheated. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes as Christians, it's real easy for us on a Sunday morning to kind of bring in a nice, pretty plan, right? To look good, right? Put on whatever, our best, and walk in. It's like, yeah, everything's great, yeah. But truly, our seeds, we're not getting anything grown, You know what I mean? Like our world is based on such shallow concepts, right? Our society in general. We want it to be instant, we want it to be now, and it's all about surface. What's on the surface, okay? It's funny because in our Sunday school class, we're talking about Samson right now, the life of Samson, and how he kind of had an issue with women, all right? And his problem was that he was just, every time he saw a beautiful woman, he just was like, oh, she's so pretty, and he wasn't worried about what was inside. Delilah, his first wife, jeez. Okay? You're talking about some evil women. Crazy. But he wasn't worried about what was in here. All he was worried about was what she looked like. Right? Okay? So, all of this stuff on the outside, beauty fades. Right? It's what's on the inside that counts. And the same thing is true in our Christian life. We can put on a show, we can dress it up, but what's truly being planted in our hearts on that daily basis? What truly are we planting? What are we sowing? Because everything may be just going along fine right now, but in the future, down the road in the next season, what are we going to be reaping from what we're sowing today? See, America is kind of, and I've referenced this many times, but it frustrates me so much that it keeps coming up. But, and I always go back to 9/11. That's probably one of the biggest tragedies ever on American soil. And you talk about people not being ashamed to pray, or it was prayer, national days of prayer. We were turned back. We hit our knees as a country for about a month. For about a month or so, maybe a little longer. But then once everything kind of started getting back to status quo, then so did we as a country. We just kind of faded away from that. You see, and we reap what we sow in a different season. You see? So we need to understand that. We need to understand that just because everything is going great right now, we still need to take time to plant those seeds, because then the next season it may not be, and that's what we're going to get the strength, and we're going to get the courage, and we're going to get the blessings we need in the new season from what we planted in the old, in the past season. That makes sense, okay? James chapter 5, verses 7 and 8 says this: "Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand." Be patient. Okay? Whatever we put, whatever we're planting, whatever we're sowing within our lives, we need to be patient for that to take its root and take its place. There are a lot of times, and I get this way myself. I become impatient. I'm saying, God, I'm trying to do the right things. I'm trying to take the time to spend time with you each day. I try to do what you want me to do. I try to be my best. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best. And yet I've got all these problems I'm dealing with. This fall for Gail and I has just been one thing after another. It really has. And I don't know why. I can't explain it. Who knows? But I mean, it's just one. Her grandfather being the latest one. 2 or 3 weeks ago, everything was. He wasn't. He's an elderly gentleman, but he was okay. And then all of a sudden, boom! And now he's just. He really hasn't woken up since Thursday. And it's just been one of these deals where you just can't understand. It's just been one thing after another. There was 1 week this season. I forget. It was like week 2 of the season. And we won a game, and nothing else happened, and we both were kind of looking over our shoulders like, this is weird. Because it's just been, every week it's been something, it's just kind of we've had to, dig through somehow, and for whatever reason, and so sometimes, I want to say this, God, why? What's going on? I'm trying my best, I'm trying to do what you want me to do. Why are you putting me through this, right? God probably says, put on your big boy pants. Stop whining. Stop whining. Just keep planting seeds. You'll reap what you sow. It'll just be in a different season. Just keep the faith. Keep going. Keep digging. Okay. Keep planting. It'll happen. All right. So this morning, if you're going through a tough time, if you're going through some struggles in your life, if you're going through some tough stuff, just keep planting. Keep planting the good seeds, because you'll reap them in a different season, and when you do, you will have victory through Jesus Christ. It's for those who, and remember what we read this morning, it says, and let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if, big word if, it's a big word, 2-letter word, but it's a big one, if we do not lose heart. So that also implies that if you do lose heart, you won't reap. It says you'll reap if you don't lose heart. Now there's been plenty of times I've wasted some pretty good seeds because I planted them, but then I lost heart. I gave up on it. Our football field out here, a couple weeks ago, we were laying the water to it. Because, you could take a step and it was just dust clouds. So dry. Right? And we had to put a bunch of water on it. And it didn't necessarily help it much, but at least it kept it from getting any worse. Because it was just so dry. We finally got some rain, and it helped. And we're supposed to get some more this week. That'll help. But what if we just said, forget it. It's not doing any good. Just forget it. So many times I have planted good seeds, but then I've lost heart. I haven't watered them. And then it's just been it's been in vain because I've lost heart. I want to tell you this morning, I want to encourage you this morning, don't lose heart. Don't give up. Don't lose faith in our Heavenly Father. Know that He knows exactly what you're going through, and He cares, and He's right there with you. Keep planting the good seeds and keep watering those seeds, and don't lose heart, because you will reap what you sow in a different season. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. In fact, when stuff comes up against you, the harder it is to keep going. That's when you need to keep going the most, because that's when Satan attacks you, is when God's about ready to do something real good. Amen. Okay? whenever you start facing hardships and it gets harder than it usually is, God's got something in store for you greater than what you already have, so keep going. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't lose heart. All right? One more scripture this morning is found in Psalms. Psalms chapter 36, starting with verse 7, says this: "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him." Seems like that's a theme in the Bible, to wait on the Lord. Okay? You know, waiting on the Lord doesn't mean 24 hours. Okay? It could be 24 months. God's timetable is not ours. Okay? I always use this, but one day it just blew my mind when I was reading in the Bible and God was talking about the Israelites being in bondage and slavery for 400 years. And He says, "I know you've been in slavery for a little while." You know? I mean, God's timetable is not ours. 400 years. I know you've been there for just a little bit. Come on, man. 400 years. Okay, God. All right. Wait patiently for Him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. In other words, don't worry about that guy like I was talking about earlier that's out there and prospering and, he's not living right, and yet he's out there, he's making all this money, he's doing all what in the world, man? He don't go to church, he never even stepped foot in the church, and he's got life so good. That's just keep planting. Keep planting the good seeds. Okay? For evildoers shall be cut off. Okay? That's what verse 9 says. But those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you will look carefully for his place, but it shall be no more. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. In closing this morning, I want to reiterate to you, I want to say again, whatever you're going through, whatever you are having trouble with right now, keep planting good seeds, because you are going to reap those in the next season. God has something for you. God has something for every one of us in our lives. And it doesn't matter what stage of life that we're in. Some of us in here this morning, like Luke, has no idea what he's going to be when he grows up. He thinks he does, but he doesn't know yet. Okay? He has some plans and some ideas, but he's 8. That might change. Okay? Some of us has already lived most of our life, and we're kind of at the end of life, and we may be thinking, I've had a good life, God, but I'm just going to ride this thing out. Thanks. No, every breath we take, God has a purpose for it, and there's a reason we are here. Okay? And God has plans for each and every one of us in the future. Okay? God's kingdom is always advancing. God is not a God who looks backwards. God is always looking forward, always straight ahead, and always advancing. And His plan involves each and every one of us to do the same, to keep moving forward. Okay? So keep planting those good seeds. When times get tough, when it's dry and there's a drought and you step on the ground, spiritually speaking, and there's just a dust cloud and it's just dry, you just keep planting seeds. You get all the water you can muster up and sprinkle it on it. And just try to keep planting those seeds and keep taking steps, because we will reap what we sow in the next season. Amen. God bless you this morning.